Hey, welcome back to Real World Deer Hunter. I'm Steve, and today we're going to talk about deer psychology and the mistakes that people make because of not knowing deer psychology. Now, it's going to sound like I know a lot, which I kind of do, but you have to understand, I've figured out just about every way to screw up how to hunt a deer, and I finally figured out to do the opposite of what I was doing, okay? So I'm not bragging. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from them. Okay. And I've got cheat sheet. No, you can't see what's on the other side. Okay. You have to understand that a deer has an intimate knowledge of its environment. He lives there every day, or she, whatever. Okay? The deer follows the same trails habitually. They use the same areas year after year after year, and they notice when something's up. They notice when there's scent somewhere where it's not usually, okay? They notice when you just plop the blind there. They notice when something's different up in a tree because they've been conditioned to look up in a tree. Okay, so you have to understand that. Okay, they know their environment really well. Number 2, don't overestimate the deer brain. Okay, you have to realize that a deer is not a sophisticated critter. Okay, it really isn't. Nobody's ever trained them to do a whole bunch of things like dolphins or anything else. Okay, deer pretty much feel 3 things. Okay, and it goes by their experiences. When a deer goes to eat, let's say, they have one of 3 experiences. It's positive, it's neutral, or it's negative. Okay? Great, okay, not so good. However you want to say it. Okay? A deer has learned, been trained basically, okay, and will become instinctual within them that when I go to this area, I have negative experiences. Okay? So they leave. When I go to this area, it's okay. So they may continue to use it. When I go to this area, I really don't have any issues. So they really get used to that area and it's ingrained in them. You also have to realize that as simple as that is as complex as it is for a human to understand that because, well, we think 27 different things about what's going on instead of just keeping it simple. Next thing about deer psychology. There is no always or never. People will tell you that. If you try to tell somebody that deer always do that, they'll tell you, well, my Uncle Freddie had an experience where it did the exact opposite. Okay? Deer never walk into the wind 100% of the time. It's pretty much impossible for them to do that and get to where they want to go. Deer use a circuit, basically. They go from one place to another, and then back. Day after day. Sure, that where they go might be a couple of 100 yards different in the trail they take or whatever, but they're still going to basically do the same route day after day after day until some type of outside interference makes them change. Okay, let's talk about feeding windows, okay? Deer gets hungry. Psychologically, he goes, it's time to eat. Okay, let's eat. And it's well thought that deer eat somewhere between 4 and 5 times a day. Now, that doesn't mean the deer's going to go, way, way out of its way to absolutely eat after it's been in bed, okay? But here's what you have to think about. If that deer's going to bed somewhere, you have to think at some point in the day that deer's going to get up for a little stretch and walk a few yards and find something to eat. So if you have some type of natural browse that's incorporated into a bedding area, it makes it that much more likely that a deer's going to come back. And then you have the big feeds of the day, the nightly feeds. And again, that deer's going to bed down some point in the night and hang out, but he's going to hang out closer to where he's going to eat. What's next? Bedding. Talk about bedding. Okay. A deer about 10% of the time will reuse a bed. That's right, they do not bed in the exact same bed time after time after time. There was a study by University of Mississippi where they took deer that were collared and stuff in a non-bothered environment. Okay, there was nothing to change these deer habits. And while, yes, they generally bedded within 100 to 200 yards of the same area time after time after time, they very rarely used the exact same bed. So for a hunter to think, well, I jumped him and he's going to be right here and he's going to bed right exactly here and this is a trail out of here, that could be a big mistake. It's a good generality and have the bedding area kind of locked down a little bit, but the deer does not use the same bed time after time after time. Okay, bucks and does are different. Men and women are different. I mean, they're basically from different planets, like they say. Okay, so buck habits versus doe habits. Bucks are generally more solitary critters except for certain times of the year. Okay, when their testosterone's low and their antlers are in velvet, you see them in bachelor groups. Other than that, they really don't tolerate a whole lot of deer around them. Now, a lot of times you'll see a herd that somebody kicked out or spooked where it's a whole bunch of does and a buck. The reason is the buck wants to feed there, but he really doesn't want to be with all those does. A lot of times that buck will hang back until the does have had their fill, and he also notices are they getting jumpy? Are they ready to run out of there? Or are they relaxed? Okay? So a lot of times the buck is on the fringe of that feeding area. Now, what does that mean for you as a hunter? Well, as a hunter, it means that bucks and groups of does generally, and I say generally, have slightly different trails. So when you find that great big cattle trail going through the woods, yeah, that's a great trail for general deer moving. But if you look off to the side of that 15, 20, maybe 50 yards, you're going to find lighter use trails which very well may have a little bit of buck sign on them. And that is the trail that you want to hunt for a buck. So yes, there generally are buck trails and doe trails. Okay. How about this one? Deer are individuals. They have different personalities. Some of them are homebodies. Some of them are nomads. And what that means is, for instance, on the farm that I used to hunt at one time, we had a buck we called Death Wish because he showed up every time no matter what. If you wanted to shoot a buck on that farm, you could shoot that buck anytime you wanted. While other bucks came and gone seemingly by mystery. So, yeah, deer do have personalities. Just don't read too much into that. Okay, let's see. Oh, another thing about deer personalities and psychology and stuff. Other than the rut, basically food and bedding rule what the deer does. Okay, that's the two priorities. Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Just like a human. Where's the best place to eat? Where's the worst place to eat? A lot of times deer are programmed to go to the last couple of spots that they fed up real good. So if A, he doesn't show up at this food area, so they'll go to food area B. But they don't have a whole long list that they keep in their head. They really don't. And the last thing, if you understand deer psychology, you'll understand how not to make the same mistakes that other hunters made. Because after all, they're trained by these mistakes. Hey, for Real World Deer Hunter, I'm Steve.